Welcome back to Beer, Wine, and Shine. Today, we're going to be doing a whiskey. And I am super excited about this one. I have been waiting for a while to do this one, and I am stoked. So, last summer, I got some corn that's been vacuum sealed and in my freezer. It's just regular yellow feed corn. However, what makes it special is that it has been in a silo for, I'm pretty sure, a full season. And it smells sour. It's high in moisture content. It is high in, it's been fermenting, like a lactate, whatever fermentation goes on inside of a silo. I am really hoping that this turns out delicious because it smells flavorful. So I'm excited to try it. I am going to make it a wheated whiskey. It is going to be 75% corn and 25% winter white wheat, soft winter white wheat. I'm using a malted wheat, so I don't have to add barley. 75-25. I think that'll give me enough corn that the corn will come through, but also give me enough wheat, but not too much wheat. I'm hoping. I don't know. I've never done wheat before either, so some firsts. I'm also going to be doing it on my Grainfather S40, and I am going to be maxing it out at 22 pounds of grain. I really hope that this is going to work out. I'm hoping that because this stuff in the silo, it's corn, but it's soft because it's high in moisture. And when it comes out of the silo, it kind of pre-grinds it. So half of it's already kind of ground and the other half is whole kernels. I am going to also run it through my mill at my normal hard ground corn setting, and I'm going to hope that it's not going to turn it into powder. If it turns into powder, it's going to be a problem for my Grainfather. It does have a recirculation arm on it, and it may create a grain lock. I'm drawing a blank on the term, but it's where the water can't be pulled through the grain to recirculate. A stuck sparging, basically, is what you would refer that to. Like if you were sparging and your water flow stopped flowing because your grain bed becomes so packed. I am worried about that. I'm going to be fermenting it on the grain, so I'm going to get a lot of that flavor. If I don't get the efficiency that I'm looking for, I'm hoping for somewhere between a 1080 and 1095. Usually is where I shoot. My grain recipe, 5 pounds of wheat and 16 pounds of corn. That's going to give me actually just less than, it's going to give me like 21 pounds or 21 and a half pounds of grain. Now normally you would, when you add your sparge water in, you want to add enough water that the grain can soak up some of that water and you still have enough to, have your final mash. The rule of thumb with that is about a pint of water per pound is how much your grain will soak up. Rule of thumb. That means for a 6-gallon batch, I'm going to have to add 2.75 gallons of water. That's going to leave me with 8.75 gallons of water total. I am going to try to make this an all grain, but I don't know that my math was right. I had to kind of work backwards because of my limitations on my grain father as far as how many pounds of grain it will hold. So if I have to, I will add sugar to get the gravity where I want. So I guess we're gonna go ahead and get our grain milled and get this show on the road. I am going to measure out my grains, of course, because that's the next step, right? This has already been milled, so I'm going to keep it separate from my corn. That's all I had. Now here's the exciting part. This was airtight. It's not anymore. Not sure why. Shit. That was undesirable. Alright. I wish you could smell this stuff, guys. It doesn't quite smell as good as it did, but that's because it's cold. Alright guys, I may have had a problem. Well, I did have a problem. I know what it is. The screws that came on this thing, the nuts came off of them. Even though I tightened them down, I had one that came off. And the screw went through my grinder. And, well, does not sound good to say the least. It really marred it up. I'm gonna hope that my entire grinder's not destroyed. Okay, so there's quite a bit of powder. Like, that's really powdery. It did crack the rest of it though. This other stuff does have some powder in it too, because of the way it came out of the silo. So that's all I'm gonna mill. If I mill it down to a powder like that, it's never gonna work in my grain father. All right, so I have all the grain that I'm gonna mill milled. My wheat was milled from my brew guy, my supplier. I have my grain father S40 over here. I've got hot water in it. I gotta go turn the breaker on so I can get it warm, heating up. But we're going to heat the water to 195 degrees because we are going to be trying to gelatinize this corn and try to get the sugars from the corn. I've never used a siloed corn, so I'm super stoked, if you can't tell, about that. Mostly because it just smells like it's gonna do something to this whiskey. Good or bad, it's gonna do something to it. I swear to God, it's so good. Okay, sorry. I'll try to keep it under control. The kernels are soft, but they're still kernels. I don't know how well they're gonna gelatinize. So, you know, that's a first. You know, we're just gonna go with it. You know, that's what I do. I just go with it. And We'll see what happens. If it's a bust, um, I'll throw in some sugar. I don't want to. I want to do it all grain, but I we'll see. We'll see. Alrighty. Now I have this set at 200 degrees because that's going to be my strike water. This thing here says I'm down to 200. So we're just going to start adding in our grains here. I got my basket in here. We're going to stir, try not to splash the 200 degree water on me. Make sure we don't get no dough balls. We're getting a little thicker. This has got a lot of that powdery stuff in it, a lot more of it.
Okay.
That's pretty much up there, ain't it? Okay, now we're going to turn on the recirculation pump and hope for the best. I did not prime it. I forgot. Okay, now this is the recirculation arm, okay? And that's going to recirculate the wort or the mash. Okay, this is a mash. It's down to 184 degrees, but that's okay. It's not a problem. Let me turn up the water volume just a little bit. Well, no. It needs to go the other way. Okay. So, a little bit of an issue here. So you got to watch your arm here. When the water level is rising like it is, that's because it's sucking water faster than it's sucking water faster than it can flow through the grain bed, which is an indication of a stuck sparge. Let me get this set right, and then I'll be back to explain why I'm actually doing this in an all-in-one system rather than the other systems that I have. Oh boy. We do have quite a thicker mash down there in the bottom, and it is starting to gel already. That is going to be a problem for the grain fodder. We are gelatinizing right now. Gelatinizing our corn, okay? Okay, so it's obviously not going to suck goop, which is what this is going to quickly become through the pump, okay? It ain't going to do it. So, I have some high temperature amylase here, okay? That's what we're going to use. 2 teaspoons per 5 gallons. I want to put in 1, 2. I got about 8 gallons in here. I'm going to go ahead and throw in 2.5 teaspoons. We're going to give her a quick stir here. I mean, this isn't really very thick. I kind of thought it would thicken up a lot more than that. This tells me, you know, maybe I could have used a lot more grain. I don't know. I'm just going by what the grain fodder says to use as far as what it can handle. You know, so that's what we're doing. I am kind of scraping this on the bottom with scissors screen I really probably maybe shouldn't do that too much because I don't want it to push through the screen. If I push through the screen of this basket, that means it's going to be sitting on the burner and that's going to be scorching. Which, if we scorch this, we've ruined it. And you'll never see this video. I don't know, you might. I'll post my mistakes. I ain't scared. Okay, so now what that high temp amylase is going to do is start to break this down. High temperature amylase can go about 195 degrees, 200 degrees, I think maximum. This is already dropped, like it was up here. My water level is dropping, which is a good sign. If I pump too fast, it'll suck. It'll pump. There's water at the bottom of this grain basket. This grain basket doesn't go but that far to the bottom, right? So it will pump, and if that pump runs dry, it'll stop pumping, and I'll burn my element out. All of which is no bueno sauce. Okay, let me play with this and I'll be back. Been holding this at 195 degrees for about an hour and a half. I'm pretty sure we're good here. Now, I mean, I've had the high temp amylase in there. High temp amylase is a little funky. It'll break this down so that it's not a goop. That's why this is a liquid. Okay? That's why this is a liquid. Is because of the high temp amylase. If I didn't have the high temp amylase in here, this would be like a thick oatmeal. We're going to do an iodine test. I'm telling you right now, that just went black. Okay? It's black as shit. That means there's a shitload of starches. So that passes the starch test for the iodine part. Okay? Alrighty, you just saw me do the starch test with the iodine. Okay? I wanted to make sure that I had starches in there. This next part, what I'm about to say, is slightly controversial. You will get slightly different information depending on who's spitting out the information. Okay? You will have to excuse me a little bit. I have been slamming this apple pie moonshine, and I'm now out of apple pie moonshine. However, it's taking effect, if you know what I mean. So, bear with me on that. Anyway, what I'm about to say. Okay. High temperature amylase works wonderfully to break down your mash when you are trying to gelatinize your grains, like your corn or your rye or whatever. If it is an unmalted, unflaked cereal grain, it needs to be gelatinized to bring out the starches that are trapped inside those grains. Okay? So without high temp amylase, when you are gelatinizing corn or any other cereal grain, gelatinized means like gelatin. Okay? Like porridge. Like a very thick oatmeal. It will become a goopy mess of just mass. Okay? It is very hard to work with. And if you have a heater underneath it, it will burn. High temp amylase will break that down from a goopy mess to a liquid. Back to a liquid. So, what was I fucking even talking about? The amylase works between 190, 195, 200 degrees. Right in that range. Okay, that's where it works at. Go above that, you're going to be killing it. So the part of this that's a little controversial is whether or not the high temperature amylase actually works as your normal amylase. High temperature amylase, the stuff that works at 190 to 200 degrees, breaks down the consistency. However, does not do much starch to sugar conversion like the alpha amylase does, that is found in grains or a powdered form. Okay? I can see the comment section already blowing up that I'm retarded. Okay? Now, I mean, I don't know. I've done some research. I get a 50-50 yes or no on this. In my personal experience, I just did a starch test. It's been going for an hour and a half. It went black, which means starch, not sugar. And it was liquid. Okay? It broke it down from the goopy mess into a liquid. But it's full of starch. If you use the high temp amylase, you still need to add in a malted grain, such as barley or whatever. Or add in alpha amylase at the 155 degree mark. I hope you're following me on this. I mean, I've been kind of heavy in the moonshine, so it is what it is. I'm a little shine affected, if you know what I mean, at the moment. And I'm trying to explain this for a freaking YouTube channel. You know, I'm not all that smart. But anyway, it is what it is. I'm having a good time. Shine on, brothers and sisters. Because y'all sisters moonshine too. Okay. Since I am captain and CEO of Team Badass, I have what's called wort chiller. I don't know what that film is. So anyway, I have a wort chiller, which means I can chill this down from the 195 degree gelatinization temperature down to the 155 degrees, so I can add in my malted grains. I think it'll be okay once I drop the temperature here with the additional grains. Most of what I do is an experiment. I'm just a normal dude trying to figure it out. Alright guys, technically it's got about 2 minutes left, but it's okay. Anyway, we're going to do a starch test on here just to see if I've got conversion. Here we go. So there's that. We're going to drop some, see how that went black? May not be, oh, what do you think? seems to be only about half full. It just seems like I could have had a lot more grains in here. I don't know. It's only the second time I've ever used this system. We're going to try to add a little less iodine. Just 1, 2, we're going to go 3 drops. Okay. See how it went black. Get my wort chiller back over here. I'm going to start chilling her back down. So anyway, I'm just going to chill this down. I need to work on these clamps. I'm going to do that off camera. And I'm going to chill this down, get it down to 100 degrees. I may even let it sit overnight, just let it cool. Put it in the fermenter. I might pitch the yeast in the morning. So it's the next morning. I went ahead and let this just naturally cool overnight. I am a little bit concerned. We're going to take a gravity reading. Going to explain my concerns here in a minute. Give it a little spray down, a little Starch sand, just so I can stir this real quick. Probably not gonna be able to see this. It's a 1044. I wanted to take a moment here and kind of discuss what I've learned from this brew day and problems that I had and the reason I think I got the results that I got. So my final gravity was 1040. I was aiming for a 1080. I had to add 6 pounds of sugar to get it up to 1080. There's a couple reasons I think that possibly I did not get what I was looking for out of these grains. For one, is because I only ran half of it through my mill. Because I was afraid that it was powderizing too much of it. This corn's actually kind of soft and a bit delicate. And when it comes out of the silo, it already had a lot of powder in it from that. Just from coming through the silo, through the auger. So already had a lot of powder in it. And running it through my mill was making it like 3/4 powder. It did still cut up some of the corn and grind it, but it was pulverizing a lot of it. And using grain father, I was afraid of clogging the screen and would not get a recirculation. As it was, the way I did it worked, but barely. I had to have that water circulation on almost stopped, like just barely on, or it would overpower. It couldn't pull it through the grain fast enough. So it was rather close, actually. In hindsight, what I could have done, what I could have and should have, but didn't do, was add in rice hulls. I have some rice hulls. I've got like 3 or 4 big old bags of it in my brew room. Never used it. I didn't think about it because I've never used it. But that's precisely what they're there for. Rice hulls will not add any flavor or contribute anything at all to the brew. What it does is gives things like cornmeal, okay, which is what I would have had here. Basically, it's just the consistency of cornmeal. Would have given it something to bind to other than itself. So in doing that, and if the rice hulls are laying in all sorts of different directions, it'll give water a path through it. Does that make sense? Another good example is rye. Rye is kind of notoriously hard to work with in high quantities. That's why whiskey making, we don't really use a lot of rye unless you're making a rye whiskey, of course. But, you know, it is notoriously hard to work with. So you can add in rice hulls to help break up that rye from just attaching to itself, gives it something else to attach to that allows water flow. And it could set up pretty hard on you. So in hindsight, that's what I should have done. I should have ran the whole thing through the mill and dumped in an entire bag of rice hulls. I'll know next time. I'll probably forget next time, but at least I'll know next time. Doesn't mean I guess I'll remember to do it, but whatever. The other concern that I have is that I have been meaning to upgrade my scale for grains for quite some time. I've just never gotten around to doing it. The scale that I have is a little small scale. I think I got it from Wally Worlds. And I use it to measure, you know, when I'm cooking or when I'm making meads. That's the scale I use to measure my honey. It doesn't have a very big platform on it. And I've actually never tested the actual accuracy of it. Also, I had a big bowl on this little scale, you know, and perhaps it wasn't on there right. Perhaps maybe when I was adding in all the measurements, because I was only putting a couple, 2, 3, 4 pounds at a time and adding them together, perhaps I made a mistake when I was typing it into the calculator. And it never did seem like it was, like it had nearly enough grain in it. So that may be another thing I did wrong. I have a suspicion that I was actually pretty light on my corn. That coupled with the fact that I didn't crack all of them or grind all the corn. However, I was hoping that the corn would still work because it's not like it's hard. I mean, it's just soft because it's got moisture and it's had moisture and it's fermented. However, I was looking at it after when I put it in the fermenter. I was looking at it, and it looks like the insides, and it looks like even the kernels split a little bit from the boiling. But I squeezed them, and it seemed like there was still gel inside the kernels. So even though I did a starch test, my starch test passed for having full conversion. I think it's because the starches that were still in the grain and still in the kernels of corn wasn't ever able to get out. It looks like they gelatinized in there. They just didn't get out of the shell. And I think next time, maybe, because I've still got like 1.5 times as much as I used today. I've got another shot. I've got another chance to make another batch. I'm gonna figure out how this turns out and we'll go from there. But I've got a barley mill. I don't use it a whole lot because my brew guy, he mills most of all my grains for me if I just get it as I go. And I need to go get some screws, and the top part needs some attention, and I need to make a few modifications. I need to put it on a bucket lid and bolt it to it, and I need for the top spout thing, I need to I'm thinking about heating it up and just putting in some solder, because it just keeps coming apart when I'm trying to use it. It's kind of a piece of junk. The mill itself is great, but the chute is a piece of junk. So I think if I did all that, I think this corn, because it's so soft, may actually go through that mill. So that's another option for next time. The mash doesn't smell as good as the grain did when I put it in there. It kind of lost that funky, sour smell it had that, gave me a, so that was kind of a bummer, but that's okay. I'm hoping it comes out in the flavor. That's what I'm really excited about. It's that flavor, right? So anyway, she's over there. I've got her in my 10-gallon fermenting barrel. It's fermenting on the grains, and I put 3 grams of beta amylase, some yeast nutrients, and a few tablespoons of daddies. And it's been sitting over there for a few hours, and it's bubbling away. So guess we'll see how it turns out, and I'll put the distillation video up, I think, on a new video. So thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time on Beer, Wine, and Shine.